December? Oh, cool. So you just got licensed. Awesome. Congratulations. All right. Who are you?
Rusty Parker.
Nice.
Got my license in October.
You already got a name tag too? You're all over it.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't wear mine. So there's that. I have one, but I just don't wear it very often. You should. I mean, because then people may ask you questions when you're out. I leave mine. It's in the pockets of all the coats I wore the other day that I don't wear, it's somewhere. Actually, I think my desk. What did you do before real estate?
Truck driver.
You're a truck driver? Jackson, did you work before? Did you work before, or did you come out of school?
Yeah.
What did you do before?
Well, I went to school and then didn't go to school.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Yeah, but I worked at like Denton Mines for a little while.
Oh, cool. Okay. How are you?
Daniel Denton was a licensed July 1st last year.
Cool.
And I didn't really get on board with this like I should have. So this opportunity.
Well, no, don't think about that way. Your
Your
mindset has to be there. This is not exactly like the thing that everybody wants to do. On the list of most liked professions by the public, we're there with cops and lawyers, and politicians. No, I mean everybody likes me. I'm just saying. It's
Now I'm running for Congress.
Please do. Will you run for president? I'll vote for you. Can we write you in? I'm going to write my cat in, actually. So what was your other profession?
I own a machine shop.
You owned a machine shop. Okay. Wow, that's cool. Oh, wow. So you have a mechanically inclined mind, that's good. It makes things useful when you're looking at a house, the components of it.
I've been around real estate my whole life. My dad was an investor.
Oh, nice. We're all going to be investors. If you're not an investor already, you're going to buy a house as an investment. I own 3 with my ex. I hate owning anything with him, but the good news is the houses make money. So it's fine. It's not the house's fault. So we're all going to get there. We're friends. We've been friends now for a week, 8 days. We talked last week after the team meeting. I can't believe I didn't even process it was you in there. I think because I haven't seen you since you were this tall.
Yeah.
Because they said your name, but it just didn't. I was in the middle. But what I pulled you aside because I felt like they weren't answering your questions. The panel wasn't answering your questions. And I'm like, I have answers to your questions. So what did you do before you were in real estate? Okay. And that's a good job to do between anything. I mean, it's like waiting tables. Like my brother's working in the FedEx warehouse right now, one of my brothers, because it's just, you can do it wherever. I mean, but the cool thing about real estate is it's sort of the same way. You can, if you're not ready to do it, the license doesn't necessarily go bad as long as you stay up on your education. And then when you're ready to use it, you can. When I was in Ignite in 2017, when I was working for Keith, I worked with a girl named Melanie Outlaw. If you guys have heard of her, she does a ton in Lancaster. And she'd just come back from having a couple babies and was like, yeah, I used to be in real estate. I haven't done it in 5 years. And she picked right back up and was producing way beyond more that I'd seen like established agents that had never left the profession. So it's really all about your mindset, your systems. Okay, you're next.
Hi, I'm Ashley Marsh. I did Ignite last fall, but I have my first 2 buyers, and I saw this. I was like, I need to sit in on this.
Oh, cool.
However,
Nice.
I got to go over to something else at 10, so I'm beating it out.
Oh God, I talk so much too. Well, I'm sorry we haven't met yet, but nice to see you in person. And then there's, I mean, I'm always here on Mondays. Dream Team United now has its own office, which is behind Lowe's. So we're not here every day, but I mean, it's my phone number. I'm never on social media either, but you can always text me. I'm from Roanoke. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I lived in Northern Virginia for a bit. I lived in Falls Church, so after college. Yeah, I had. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I went to Virginia Tech. I always write that everywhere. I'm not going to get a new phone number because I got this number in 2003. Like, why would I change it now? So yeah, back before there were cell phones, guys. That was a time. That was a thing.
It was a $15 plan for 15 minutes.
I remember my mom had a phone that she got from me she's always worked for law firms, and she got it for free and I would go shred documents in the summer so I could keep this phone. That was my first one. That was where that phone number came from. So. All right, your turn.
Hi, I'm Melinda.
Hey.
Got my license in November. Before this, I was a stay-at-home mom.
Ah.
And then I was coaching 40. I want to do it. I want to do something for myself.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to do this, and the timing was just totally wrong. And then I just made it right. I actually reached out to Rebecca Cullen. She's
Oh,
one of
okay.
my neighbors, and I was like, hey, how do I do this? And she was like, hey, call Lori, talk to her, sit down with her, and there's scholarship programs you can get,
Mm-hmm.
and I got one. So that was actually more motivation for me because somebody else was paying for it. I was like, well, no, I have to do it because they're paying for it. I just have to.
Yeah, it is something, right? When someone else is bought in with you, you're like, I can't fail. It's embarrassing. Yeah, definitely. All right, last one.
I'm Megan. I got my license in October, and before this, I was a stay-at-home mom for like a year. And then prior to that, I was mortgage and
Oh, cool. Who'd you work for?
Fifth Third for a while, and then before that, briefly at the end of that. Then before that, a small correspondent lender for like a long time. They're up north, so
No, no, I haven't.
getting over a cold.
We all are. It's part of, 'tis the season. What do you think about real estate agents since you were on the other side? Did you feel like real estate agents were easy to work with, or were they more challenging, or?
There were some good ones, but a lot of not so good ones.
Yeah, I think everybody can say we know a bad real estate agent. Like it's, but also I've had a doctor that I didn't like, or like you go to that one dentist and you're like, I don't want to see the hygienist named Angie. She's really nice, but she hurts, man. I don't want to see her. I was like, I don't want to see her. I want to see Jill. Like there's a way to do it better, and that's ultimately what the goal is. And that's why we talk about it all the time because, there is definitely enough business to go around, and the better you are at knowing the elements of your craft, being confident, and also being able to meet your clients where they are. Like, what exactly do they need? What are they really asking for? Because a lot of times it's not that what we're doing is wrong. It's we're not hearing them. We're not asking enough questions. You're not stopping enough to listen, which is what I'm guilty of because I just will run right over people with my enthusiasm. And I'll tell people that too. Don't let my enthusiasm get you too excited. Like, get you excited about a house that you don't truly like, or me calling you and saying, hey, give me a call back because 123 Main Street and this and this and this, when it may be that I just need to call them and say, did you get the emails that I'm sending you? I haven't heard back from you this week, so do you want to see anything this weekend, or where are you guys kind of right now? Where are you processing versus, let's just go? Because I think once you get into it, you'll get excited. If you started to show, then you realize, and I know you've done work already, you realize this is exciting. I'm excited with them, especially on the buyer side. So I have been in business since 2017. Before I was in real estate, I was in nonprofit, and I know Jackson's family. That I worked for Keith Sandman, who's still a producing real estate agent with a different team, and he was one of my first friends when I moved to Charlotte. So one of my best friends, Michelle Taylor, she was a college friend of Keith. So when I was hanging out with the first group of people, he was just always a very charismatic person. And he was like, you would be really good at real estate, and I did not want to do it at all because I was like, I've always been salaried. I worked for nonprofit right after college. Wasn't much of a salary, nonprofit, but I liked what I did. And then I worked in HR, but for a real estate development company. And that was kind of how I thought, I can do this actually. And there are real estate agents out there that don't know what they're doing. And there's a lot of exciting things I can learn in real estate. There's ways I can master this whole side of the law that I wasn't familiar with, and I could do it in 2 states. And my goal really was never to make more money, which is interesting. I was always afraid of thinking about having more money. I had a love-hate relationship with money. My ex-husband he has substance abuse issues, and he's physically, emotionally abusive, which doesn't really affect you unless you realize you need to get out and get away and start a new opportunity for your kids, right? Like, that shouldn't affect real estate, but it made me go, I cannot fail. I'm going to get out of the situation. I'm going to give my kids a new life, and I absolutely cannot fail. This is it for me. Like, if I don't make $11, $1,100, $11,000, $110,000, no one's doing it for them. This has to be me. So my first year, I was able to replace my income, and that was good enough. In my second year, I replaced it and then a little bit more. And then I interacted with Dream Team United, Fayaz Desaji. I think he's taught here before. If you guys all probably know Fayaz, he stands out a lot. But he and Mike Morrell, as the team founders, I saw everything that they were doing on their team. And I was like, well, there seems like there's a lot to be done there and a way you can grow a business within a business. And when I was on my previous team with Keith, he was a good friend, but I never really saw the opportunity to take my business to the next level. So I joined Dream Team in 2019. And what's really exciting is I'm on the buyer side. I don't do listings. I can, but I'm choosing just to stay on the buyer side because we have a streamlined system where I work with buyers, and then when they have a house to sell, they go to my partner Shannon, and so you get 2 agents for the price of one. We're not going to say that anymore, but just in this room because it's a safe space, we're not even going to say the word price anymore. But you have 2 agents that are working for your interest. So Shannon is dedicated to getting the house sold for the most money as effectively as possible, and then I'm on the buy side. So there's a house that comes up that they love, I can be there immediately because Shannon is making sure the photographer's at your house. So it actually is a very effective way to run a business if you build it right. So buyers are usually easier when you're starting out. It's much easier to get someone who's going to work with you on the buy side because maybe they don't have property to sell. But also you're not sitting down in front of them and valuing their particular home, which has emotions behind it. You know, you're sitting there going, I know you love this color, but you're probably going to paint this room. I mean, you're not having that conversation. You're getting to go be petty with other people's houses like, oh my God, can you believe they put that tile in here? It's easy to bond. And who doesn't want to go out and see houses? It's a lot easier to get someone to be like, hey, do you want to meet me here? Let's go look at this house together. Also being in an open house is a great way to sit out there, get in touch with people. They're already warm leads because they're walking in the door. And then if you go armed with, if you don't like this house at 123 Main Street, there's a house around the corner that has these features or has the layout you're looking for, has the yard you're looking for, whatever. I did read this material, so we'll see how much I stick to it because I'm really not so good about sticking to what I'm supposed to. So here's the overview. We're going to skip through that. Talking about the components of the transaction. So everything that we were writing up there on the board, Kip was writing up this morning with lead generation, lead follow-up. That's the most important piece of what we do. Has anybody heard of a book called The One Thing? You guys heard of that? They talk about that in here. That's a great book. You're not going to be like, wow, that was so exciting. But the material in there is going to say over and over and over, and you will never forget it, is 20% of what you do during the day is going to make the other 80% unnecessary or easier. So if you spend 20% of your day doing your lead generation, and whether that's writing handwritten cards, side note, I love those and people really like them. So even though they're 61 cents a piece, you should do them because people really get excited about stuff in the mail. So handwritten notes, talking to people at the grocery store and giving them your card, texting them your electronic card. I sent you my hi hello card, right? Did you look into it? Is it free? My team pays for some stuff that, yes, it's paid for with commission split, so I'm paying for it, but I don't know exactly if it's free or not. But check out Hi Hello. It is an electronic business card that you can send, and it captures their phone number. So when you're talking to somebody at Lowe's and you're like, hey, are you here looking at tile? Me too. And then you can find out what they're doing. They're like, well, actually, we're getting our house ready to sell, blah, blah, blah. I don't say, oh, do you have a real estate agent yet? Because they're probably going to say, yeah, I already do, even if they don't. It's like going to Gap and looking for clothes. You don't want anybody to talk to you. You know what you're looking for. Yeah, no, I'm good. So instead, it's just like, oh, yeah, no, so I'm in real estate. And then you just kind of roll it with it. Like what I'm seeing a lot now is people are doing the textured subway tile. Like just give them some information because there's that social psychology principle of I gave you something. I gave you something for free. I didn't ask you for anything. They might want to give you something back as a thank you. And then you can be like, hey, by the way, I'm sure you know other agents, but I'm going to text you my info. What's your phone number? And don't even let them say yes or no. Just be like, I'm going to send it to you right now. It's electronic. Okay, 704, blah, 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 980, whatever. And then you can send it to them and just say, feel free to text me or call me. I just am with KW Connected, so right up the road on 160 or wherever you are. I mean, I live in Pineville, so it may be you're interacting with them in University area or Hickory or wherever you are for the weekend because you can serve anybody in either state. You're licensed in both, and you'll get there if you're not already. So, keeping that in your pocket is how you can reach out. That's a contact. You have their number, and then you can follow up with them in a week. You can send them, you can see if you can look up their phone or their address through your phone number. Sometimes you can, but you could at least send them a text and say, it was great chatting with you at Lowe's the other day. I was just thinking, have you thought about doing X, Y, or Z? Try to give them some kind of information. Or I thought about you this morning. Did you see the article that says whatever? And then you can give them the information because it probably will take you 10 times to really get them to like you, know you, trust you. But if you come in 10 ways with adding value, then you're not going to be weird or creepy. Now, these numbers up here, don't feel like you aren't doing it right. You guys are all telling the truth. I mean, I can tell. And you're probably having genuine interactions. Like when you're counting, I had 2 contacts yesterday. No one's questioning if you're telling the truth or not. The more you get into this, the more comfortable you get. You'll meet agents that have been in the business for a long time, like me, that say, I don't lead generate because I have a lot of repeat business, or yes, I lead generate, but then they don't know what their numbers are. Yesterday, I did not do my goal, which is to make 20 dials every day. I didn't do that yesterday. I did 7, but I had 2 contacts and 2 consults as a result this morning, both before I got here today. So once you get to where you have your comfortable voice, you'll be more effective. So just get in the habit, that 20% of doing it, because once you get comfortable with it, it's going to make it so much easier. And then you can insert that lead generation wherever you want. Like, you can go to an event. I go to one every Thursday morning. It's a networking event. And I make sure that at least 2 of the 20 people that usually come, I have spoken to for at least a minute. Really, I'm a chatty person. So it's really not hard for me to talk for a minute. But that I talked for not 10 or 20 and asked them about their grandma and everybody. Like, I'm actually having a productive conversation about their business, my business, and whatever that looks like. And it's just about connecting. So find your natural way to lead generate. Do you want to do open houses? I used to do 5 a weekend. It's not easy, man. We used to do them on DTU. Does not, Dream Team United doesn't like Friday night ones. I used to like them. So when I was on the first team I was on, Sandman Group, I used to do them Friday nights and 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And shit would happen. Like, oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Stuff would happen. Like, I would show up late for one. And so you have to get to where I would show up late because I'd be coming from the other one. Somebody was still there. I only gave myself an hour to get to the other one. You know, I had 20 minutes and there was a car accident. And so you've got to think about, you know what you're good at. You know why you're there and people want your help. When you show up and there's someone at the door, you have to see it as an opportunity. Like, the one part of you is going to freak out and go, oh my God, I'm late. I look like an idiot. Instead of going up and actually sharing with them as much of the truth as you can while still making you look like a professional. So I am so sorry. The last open house I was in was so incredibly busy that I really couldn't step away. Have you ever had that before? I apologize. My name's Denise. Your time is absolutely important to me. What's your name? And then so you've seen online already that this house is 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, it's 1,200 square feet. It was built in. Make sure that you know all your stuff, and you're going to have toured, I'm telling you this if you don't do it already, every house that you do an open house for, tour it before you do it on Saturday or Sunday, because you want to know it really well. Someone's going to ask you something and you're going to have no idea. Where's the water heater? Somebody asked me that on maybe my 3rd open house, and I thought I was going to die. I had no idea. Like, is it in the crawl space? Is it in the attic? Is it in the closet? I didn't even think about it. And people ask because a lot of people want to add a tankless now. So if it's 10, 15 years old, depending on where it is, they may want to change that out. Or if it's a house that's from 1950 and everything else looks original, is this the original water heater? Because no, they're not expensive to replace, but they can cause a heck of a lot of damage. So making sure that you know the age of those systems and mechanicals. Print out something so they have a piece of paper to hold on to. People like that. But also have a way to collect their info when they come in. Like, you can use the hi, hello. You can say, for security purposes, we're just making sure we have people's contact information as the seller requested. Most of the time, the seller isn't going to ask you, but they probably would like to know who was in their house. All their belongings are in there. Even if it's a vacant home, it's a good, hey, do you mind signing in for me? You can use a Google document if you want. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. We have a database that you can get people to log right in, but they usually put stuff like Mickey Mouse 555 555. So stand there with them if you can and still have that conversation. But the way you add value is really how you're going to capture their info. So what are you bringing that the person at the open house next door didn't already give them? Converting people from an open house is fairly easy, but it takes longer than you'd think. So much like when you worked in retail. If people are coming in at the same time, you can't give everybody the same attention. So you're going to have to use your ability to read people to see who wants you to help them. Like the guy that's still got his sunglasses on that's over there in the corner, yeah, watch him to make sure he's not stealing anything, but he probably doesn't want your help. Like, greet everybody, try to get their info, try to share yours. You know, if they're not talking to you, I don't give them my paper. I hold mine. I don't, because people will just collect it and walk around the house. Like, I hold on to mine and I'm like, would you like a printout to reference? You've probably seen it online. But this will just have some of the highlights. As you know, it's already this many square feet, this many bathrooms, you know, whatever. The layout piece is obviously the most important when it comes to the house. The cosmetic things you're going to talk people through. But one thing that I say to everybody at open houses is, while I'm here with you, we're going to be looking at the 3 L's. So keep that in mind. Have you ever heard the 3 L's before? They're going to be like, no, what are the 3 L's? That's lot, layout, and location. Those are the 3 things about this house that we can't change. And then if you're like me and you like to tell dad/mom jokes, you can make it silly and be like, location, I obviously can't pick this house up and move it. Well, I can, but it's going to be really hard. I don't have a truck that big. So like you can kind of, and they might roll their eyes at you, but you know, what kind of layout are you guys looking for? Is it just going to be you living in the house, or is it you and other members of your family? Did you notice that this house doesn't have a bathroom on the main living level? Is that something that you're okay with? Like if it's a tri-level or if it's an older home, just bringing things to their attention that they may not have thought about. And then again, that's that social psychology of you're giving me something, I should probably give you something back. And when you guys get into the point in your business where your business is really growing, you're going to have certain businesses that you want to support, and they're going to exclusively support you. They're going to refer you their friends. Be like, I really want you to work with my friend Jackson because he provided me amazing service. I want to do the same thing. And just look for that commonality piece so you can talk to them. Like if they've got a team jersey on, like talk about the team. Don't leave. No, it's okay. It's nice to meet you. I'll see you again. Are you going to the awards thing?
Yes.
The KBA Awards? Okay. You know what you're wearing? Because I don't.
No, I have no idea.
All right, I'm probably going to wear this. Bye. So yeah, look for that commonality piece so then they know who you are. Sometimes I have said weird stuff to people like, you guys ever had this mushroom elixir? I drink it all the time. You can talk about that. You can be like, you ever had one of these? I mean, like because it's kind of awkward. You're like standing in the house with somebody you've never known, and if you're talking to them and they're not talking back, it's like, all right, it's fun, huh? So you can even just talk about yourself. Like, so what'd you do today? And if they're not saying anything like, oh, well, yeah, this morning before I came here, I actually went and showed a house at this location. Is this the only size house you're looking for, or are you guys also looking for, whatever? And just start letting them know what you're doing. People are going to think you are the busiest, most successful real estate agent on the planet when you can just come off with all this stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever run into someone asking you how long you've been in business. It's happened to me 2 times ever. But people don't. If you come at them with info, they have no reason to care how long you've been. If they do happen to ask you, just say, man, it feels like forever. But I've been with Keller Williams Connected specifically since blah, blah, blah. Because then they probably won't say, where were you before? You're just going to be like that, If you end up joining a team, you could talk about how long your team's been in business. But really what they're looking for is, how do I know that you know what the hell you're talking about? That's really all that it is. And now that the world is looking at real estate agents in a different way, they've never liked us, but now they don't want us to get paid. There's going to be different ways of people analyzing what role we play essentially in this. So the more you know, the more impressed people will be, and they're going to want to come back to you. So having a list of other homes while you're there is a great way to make that natural lead gen from an open house carry on. So cold calls, isn't it? You guys like doing cold calls, calling people cold? Oh, they're awful. And you probably don't know who to call. I remember when I first got in business, I would come into the office and look at my phone and be like, I've already called my 25 friends that I haven't talked to in the last 3 days. Like I called them last week. I'm not going to call them again about this. It's embarrassing. It feels ridiculous. So I can't tell you exactly what they're looking for in terms of what they want you to do in Ignite. Just do what they tell you. But in practice, if you know that you don't have anybody to call, find a way to just get out and get in front of somebody. Like go to the grocery store and go to the deli and start talking to them. I mean, really, you can be like, hey, so I see you guys have the whatever on sale today. Cool. I'm actually just here on my lunch break. I'm a realtor over at Keller. Just see if you can get them to start talking to you. Mike Morrell, I think, sold to 2 different ladies at Publix, the one on Gold Hill Road, like 2 ladies in the deli. So, I mean, it really works. Go to the store. When someone provides you great customer service, like if you're at, what is that cute little boutique in Baxter, page 6? Like if you go there, you guys aren't going to go there. All right, guys aren't going to go there. Gals, y'all can go wherever you want. You might want to go there. I don't know. Go there, and if they give you great customer service, you can say, I just have to tell you, you have been awesome. I'm a real estate agent. I would love to provide the same level of service to you that you gave to me. How can I return this for you? Are you looking to buy or sell real estate this year? Do you think it'll be next year? Let me just give you my information. And if you can use that hi, hello, you don't have to ask for their number. It's just going to text them or, something similar. I'm sure there's a similar app. But ways that you can say, again, you took care of me. I want to take care of you. It's all that whole barter system. We're all friends. We're all taking care of each other. I want to buy from you. I want to take care of people. If you take your car to the dealer, the guy that I take my car to, he's always like, how's business? I'm like, you tell me, what have you heard on the news? He's like, business is terrible. I go, no, business is great. Don't listen to the news. I'm really busy. Now he doesn't know that my price point has dropped significantly because affordability is down, but that's a different conversation. And that goes back to that lead following up. This lead gen piece, the lead follow-up, I do that all in the same 2 hours. Like if there was somebody I never heard back from, fine. If I'm calling somebody cold, we have a website that people log into, so I will have ice cold phone numbers on there. Or if somebody says, hey, call this girl, she's a friend of a friend, she may be looking to buy or sell, you can come across as, Hey, I am so sorry. I know this is kind of an awkward call. My name's Denise. I'm a real estate agent. My friend Shelly said that you guys are looking to buy. Am I totally off base here? I mean, like, give them a way to say, oh, no, you're not bothering me. Or instead of saying, do you have a few minutes to talk, say, is this a bad time? Because they're going to go, no, most of the time. If they say, yes, it's a bad time, it probably really is a bad time. I mean, it probably is. Hang on one second. This is a number that I know, or that has called me. Hello? Yes. I'm good, Nick. How are you?
Doing great. So I'm your inspector over at Pine Street this morning and just wanted to reach out to you and touch base on a couple of things.
Okay.
So first and foremost, would you be willing to reach out to the sellers and see if I have permission to move a small hutch or cabinet that's underneath the attic access?
Small hutch or cabinet underneath the attic access. Yes, I can definitely do that.
And I can text you a picture if it helps as well.
That would be great.
Okay. And then after that, I just want to know if you guys are planning to attend the inspection or if there are any special concerns or questions while I'm here.
If you don't mind calling us at the end, Brad, the buyer, is actually sick today, and I think he gave it to me. I have a sore throat too, so we're not going to come see you and stand in close proximity. But if you don't mind just calling us at the end and giving us kind of the highlights, that would be amazing.
Sure thing. Yeah, I can give you a little verbal summary towards the end there. If you don't mind, what I'll do is I live like 5 minutes down the road, so I'll just head home real quick right at the end, and that way I'm in my office and not standing out here in the rain.
Okay, that sounds great. I would appreciate that very much.
Sounds good. So I'll give you a call. I'm probably going to be here till a little while after noon, but I'll give you a call shortly after that.
Okay, that sounds good, Nick. Thank you for calling. Sorry I missed you earlier.
All right. No worries at all. I'll send you over that picture of the little desk type thing that I was asking about.
All right, sounds good. I'll send it over to the agent. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye. I go to all my home inspection reviews if I can. I really do have a sore throat, so nobody drink after me. Huh? It's just the weather, I'm sure. But my client's not feeling good, so we're not going to go. We're just going to have a verbal review. But saying that because I have learned so much about home construction from going to those. And I mean, I had a house that I renovated, but if you haven't gotten to that point, you're not going to know some of these things. Remember how much they teach you about home construction in school? This much. What was it, like a day? It's like the way they talk about the Vietnam War when you're in school. Like when they're like, oh yeah, we spent an afternoon on it. Anyways, we're moving on. I'm like, hold on a minute. Wasn't this a huge part of our history? But they really don't spend a lot of time talking about construction. So at least at first, go to your reviews because it will really help you understand. And that way you can coach your clients through when you get the inspection report and it has 140 things on it. They're going to say, I don't want this house sucks. And what you're going to help them understand is for a home of this age, this is typical. But that doesn't mean that these things aren't a big deal. Because if they're a big deal to you, let's talk about what that's going to mean for us in terms of strategy with continuing. So the more you are available, the better. I'll look at Gary quote. The right approach to close for a meeting is the only approach. Just ask for it is the only approach. Asking for a meeting. So when I got off the buyer consult, it was on the phone today. I just said, well, the next step is for us to meet, and I actually would love to see your house if you don't mind, because this gal wants to custom build. Because I said, I think it's a great way for me to see the finishes and architectural features that appeal to you. And she's like, yeah, that's totally fine. And I went, Saturday is a little hairy for me in the morning. Saturday afternoon is good, or Sunday, how does that work? And I'm just giving them the assumptive close, which I'm sure they teach you guys in some of the scripting. It becomes a little more natural once you're doing it. But just like what you do when you talk to a friend you haven't seen in a while and you're like, let's grab lunch. When's the next time that works? If you don't set that little cue, it's never going to happen. Then you're just like, let's grab lunch. And then no one ever grabs lunch. So unless you give them the next step of look at your calendar, see, and again, tell them that you're busy. I mean, you're going to act like you are a baller right now. You have more business than you really know what to do with, but you are available to them because they're important to you, right? So, hey, it looks like this day is busy, but I've got this time. Does that work? And they will probably say, no, it doesn't, but then this will, because they don't want to just say, yeah, no, that doesn't work for me. I mean, can you imagine someone say, you wouldn't say that to anybody. They're probably not going to say it to you most of the time. What is an A buyer? So an A buyer is somebody who is willing, ready, and able to buy in 30 days. That, in my opinion, can be a little malleable. You may have an A buyer that stays with you for a really long time. I have one that's been a couple of years in. I know exactly where he's going to buy. He is ready. He has come down to visit and seen houses with me multiple times. His wife is incredibly picky. They want Sun City in particular. They want one particular model. They live in Ohio, and It's going to take forever. On paper, they are not A buyers anymore. I should move them back to B, but I keep them in A because those are the people I want to touch at least once a week, like you, even if they're not here. So there's a way that'll be a little more autonomous once you get into your business and you really know your clients. We talked about the lead generation piece, so I don't even feel like I've seen this before. Okay, leads to appointments, preparing for the buyer consultation, finding a home. Anybody have any ahas as we're going through? Aha. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so when we're talking about the A buyer piece, responding right away to any of your lead inquiries. I mean, obviously, you're at the point in your career right now where it's like, of course I'm going to respond right away. I'm waiting for this. It's more when you're idiots like me that have been in business for 7 years, however long it's been, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to call somebody back because I had this appointment. Just put it in your calendar, man. I have an Android. It works perfectly fine. I know nobody thinks it does. It makes a lot of people really upset that I have one. I don't know why, but it does the same thing an iPhone does. I put it right on here and it reminds me of stuff. And that's what made me answer that call, is because the reminder went off and I'm like, oh yeah, I do have a home inspection right now. But responding quickly is going to show them that, you know, you are available, you have the information. Now, let me talk out of the other side of my mouth for a minute. If you can't respond right away, and because you're in an appointment, that's okay. If you can text them back if it's a phone call, hey, I'm in an appointment right now, I can text, or I can call you at this time. Like there is something to be said for you don't have a wide open schedule either. So once you get into talking to people, where do you call a lawyer or your doctor and they immediately always answer every single time? Like it's okay if you can't answer their call, I guess is what I'm saying. A fresher client, a newer one that doesn't know you yet, the sooner you respond, the better. As you get into the process of providing service to them, it's going to be okay if they call you at 6:30 in the morning and you're in the shower. I mean, that's fine, but don't freak out. You can get back to them when you can. Are you guys using Command to put everybody in your database? Is that what you guys are doing? It's just like any other database. I mean, it's making sure you have their information in there so that way you can stay connected. And we're fortunate now that we have technology to help us better stay in front of our clients. How about the LP Mama? Do they use that term to you guys? You know what that means? LP Mama? LP Mama? LP Mama is pretty cool. So let's see if I can remember exactly what everything means. Mama, just like it sounds like. So this is location. That's that highest driver of value, right? And this is price. Purchase price, which you also are probably going to call budget. This is motivation. Why are they buying? Who said that they've got to do something? Is it their parents are like, get the hell out of my basement? Is it that they had a baby and they need more space? Is it that they want to move to Charlotte because they heard it's cheaper than Cincinnati? Whatever that looks like. This is agent. So you're going to talk about your role as an agent too in this conversation. You don't necessarily have to go in this exact order, but location is always a great place to start. Because like my dad-mom joke, I can't move the house for you very easily. I also tell people I can find you a house anywhere. We get a lot of people that relocate here. You know, around 100 people move to the Charlotte metro every day. We were in the top 3 for United Van Lines and U-Haul last year, which is huge. And it's true. You can see it in your business, and you will. You're going to get a lot of people that move here from other places because our taxes are still below national average. We have 220-something sunny days a year. Doesn't snow here anymore. Used to. Doesn't anymore. It just does this. But you can still go to work when it does this. And if it was snowing, you couldn't. So, hey, it is what it is. And you can get to the snow in an hour. This is mortgage. What the hell's the last one? Location, price, motivation, agent, mortgage, and I don't know. I don't remember that one. But so if you're thinking about the budget piece, like, all right, they tell you that they really want to live in Fort Mill. So they want a 5-bedroom house with 2.5 baths. They got a lot of kids. They want the Fort Mill schools, and they want to be under 300. Does anybody think that that's doable? Yeah, right. So what you're going to say instead of going, you should have moved here 10 years ago. Obviously, that's not going to do very much for your business. So instead it's, okay, so I understand that space is really important to you and schools are really important to you. Right now, the average home price in Fort Mill is going to be closer to $500,000. So I would like for you to think about, as the buyer, are there any other areas that you're familiar with? And then you can make a suggestion for areas that you think may work that have good schools. If you don't know one, that's okay, because what you can also say is, your definition of what's a great school may be a little different than mine. My kids go to an elementary school that's a 7 out of 10. I'm fine with it. But, you know, if something, you want a 10 out of 10 on great schools. So what are the things that you're looking for in a school, and we can research that together. Also, does it have to be 5 bedrooms? What is it about 5 bedrooms that's most important? If you've got 2 kids, they're each going to be in a room. You've got a room for yourself. Are the other rooms offices? What do they look like? Okay, one's an office. Could that be a flex space? Could that be a bonus room? Could that be a sunroom? Could you have an unfinished basement? You know, there's ways to figure out how these 2 pieces are going to work with that also layout piece. So those 3 L's kind of are all baked into that part. And then the motivation part too. If they're moving here from Florida and they've been to visit the Carolinas a couple times because they love the Outer Banks and they've always wanted to live here, they're not as motivated as someone else that has to move. They're either moving because of they need more space, they need less space, their job, whatever. It might be a financial reason that they have to move. They might have to sell what they have because it's too much, so it's not affordable. So finding out what that motivational piece is now. What's simple, not easy, about our current market is if someone's looking right now, there is a reason. No one wants to pay the interest rates that we have. You're looking at a house that you would have bought in October of last year. It's approximately $20,000 to $30,000 more money in October last year than it would have been October the year prior. So like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. That's $25,000 to $35,000 to buy that house, $400,000 house. I didn't tell you that piece. So that's kind of incredible. Did you guys hear the statistic about the number of homes sold last year? It was the lowest since 1992. Were you alive in 92? I know you were not. So I was cool. I had Doc Martens then. I was 10 or 11. And so the average income in the U.S. then was like $40,000. Their first-time home buyer pool, I think, was like in the 40 to 50% or so. I just read the stat. I'll have to look it up again. But last year, it was less than 30% first-time home buyers. Man, that sucks, huh? Because the affordability. They don't have an asset to sell. Anybody that had a house to sell wasn't struggling as much with these purchase prices as somebody who didn't have anything. Because you're talking about taking cash out of your bank account or borrowing it from a family member or financing every last bit up to 3.5% as you can, and then paying mortgage insurance. So the affordability index is definitely down. It was above 100. Above 100 is better. Affordability last year was like 94. So in 1992, we had significantly more houses to choose from. We have a lot less. We still have a shortage of millions of homes. So that's from 2008, from the financial downturn. They stopped building because builders didn't have any money. And that it was really significant here. If you were here then, things were very dead. I was in nonprofit, so it was good. High times for me. Things are going well, nonprofit. And then during COVID, we were all going to die of COVID. Now, COVID was very scary, and people did die, and it was a terrifying time to be alive. And we got out of it, and what we realized is we're not going to do that again with a pandemic, probably. I mean, there's going to be other things we all run into. But I think from a stopping the entire world standpoint, what we did is put money into people's pockets that they probably weren't expecting. Some people needed it, but some people didn't. And then people stopped traveling as much, and they might have gotten rid of a car, and they might have gotten rid of their childcare, and their kids are still homeschooled or whatever. And so you have people that have more money in some situations than ever, which is fascinating. But then the affordability went down because we have the same buyers competing for, a smaller number of homes. So we barely have enough homes for sale to be able to cover the number of people coming. Guess what? There are more people that are ready to buy homes, like you guys. I've been buying homes since 2006, but you guys are just getting into it now. Think of all the clients that you're going to serve, and they're competing with houses with me, y'all, our parents, our siblings, people that have been living in their houses for 20 and 30 years that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of equity. And they're competing with them. So no wonder it was unaffordable and it got hard. So even though everybody's coming after our commission, our job is more important than ever. They need the expert. They need you to be able to say, okay, I see it's been on the market for 4 days. Looking at the number of showings it's got, it is booked for a number of days. What we can assume is this house is going to sell at or above list. Let's look at some comps from last year, because 6 months ago, those aren't really comps anymore. What was happening last fall was totally different than what's happening now. I've been busier in the last 2 weeks than I have any January of my entire life, but really in real estate. So that's weird. Historically, we don't normally get springtime this early. But once those rates dipped into the mid-sixes, people are moving. So this motivation piece is going to change. I mean, you may get a buyer who's like, I don't want to buy for 6 months, and then you send them that right house and they're ready to buy tomorrow. So that takes you into this side, making sure they understand who you are, what you do, good Lord, and why you know so much. This is what makes you so freaking great. And they're going to love you, and they're going to bring you to their kids' parties, and they're going to talk about you to all their friends. And then, I spelled mortgage wrong. Mortgage. So it's where you come in. You're going to have so many loan officers that you already know are fantastic. Does anybody have a loan officer that you already know you would send a lead to? Do you know, just from your connection with real estate?
Well, I just sent the buyer that.
Okay, so and we do have in-house lenders here, which is really cool. Matt can be, or anybody at Movement can be your preferred. Just build that relationship. Make sure you get the loan officer whose cell phone you have who will answer the call at 11 o'clock. There will be a time at 11 p.m. when you need a pre-approval to write the offer, and they don't have one yet. So getting that person to be in relationship with you, you send them business, and they're not going to have as much business to give you. It's just not as easy on the mortgage side as far as us sending them business. But lenders are going to be banging down your door to be like, hey, send me leads. Just make sure you ask the question of what kind of programs they have, and be there when they have those first conversations, at least initially when you're getting into the business, because the more you know, the better you can advise them. We're obviously not loan officers, but if somebody comes to you and they say, well, right now, my rent is about $1,500 a month. I really can't go much higher than that. And we need to be in the Charlotte area. I need to be in Charlotte schools, and I have, we've got a couple kids, so we need at least a decent sized yard, and we need at least 4 bedrooms. If they can't pay more than $1,500 a month, it's like, okay, what were you planning on putting down? Well, we've got about $9,000 saved. There is probably not a loan out there that's going to work for them. It's just not. That doesn't mean that they couldn't qualify for grants and things. Still introduce them to a lender, but do that soon. Let's go ahead and get a lender on the phone so that way we can figure out what your ideal budget is, because everybody wants to spend less. But my goal is to show you as few houses as possible. The longer we take in the home search process, the more money I cost you. The people in Ohio, for me, are the perfect example. How much prices have gone up since they started. And he knows, and he says it all the time. Man, that house would have been $90,000 cheaper 3 years ago. And I said, yeah, maybe. But that house wasn't out there 3 years ago and you guys weren't ready. You want it to be the right layout. You want it to be the right location. You want it to be that perfect yard. For somebody, it may be worth that $90,000, but making sure you're communicating that as you're going. If you've shown them 15 houses, there's either something wrong with your buyer consult where you didn't get some information that you need, or they are not communicating all their needs and wants to you, because it shouldn't take that long. There aren't enough houses on the market to see anyway. So if anything, the challenge now is going to be getting them into the house that they like, because there's just fewer to choose from, and competing with other buyers.
So how does it, like, you said you've had them for 3 years. So did they get pre-approved 3 years ago and they have to do that again? Or?
Great question. They would have to. They're cash, but yes, they would have to. They'd have to get pre-approved. Yeah, they're cash. But they have it. I mean, they have a house to sell, but they have the money. So when you work with a cash buyer, it's a delicate conversation to have, but ultimately what you're going to say is, so when we make an offer on a house, we're going to need to demonstrate that we have the ability to purchase. So do you have your funds in an investment account or something similar where we can show a total? You can black your name and all your information out. To be honest with you, I don't want anybody to see it, but we do have to show them that we have the amount of money. Is that something you think you could do at least within 30 days of when we start really actively looking? I've had people say they have cash and then it turns out they don't. So, because people don't know that you have to show it, I've heard stories from other agents where their client says they're going to buy in cash, and then when they're under contract, they get a mortgage. Don't ask me how that happened. But they went, oh, I'm not going to be able to access it. Talk about calling the other agent looking like a jerk.
So is that not just on the agent?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, but sometimes people don't feel confident doing it. They're nervous. They're like, I feel really bad. I don't know if I should, should I ask them? Yeah, you should ask them. If they don't want to tell you, if they're like, well, that's information that's private, and your response is, well, I'm going to send it to the listing agent of the house that we're going to pursue when we do indeed pursue a home. So that's going to be something that's shared anyways. Just if it makes you feel more comfortable, it's only going to be with me. You guys all use DocuSign. I use Dotloop, but it's all the same thing. So that's all password protected. Nobody can gain access to it. And again, it's only going to hide. It's only going to have a total of your ability to purchase. If you would rather not show that, what you can do is go to your bank or your financial advisor, and they can write you a letter. And I've had people do that too. But in that case, get them to show it for like one particular home. So like 123 Main Street. So if you don't have a house yet, you can say, well, let's use this as an example, just so we have something in our archives in case we do need to be able to show something. Can your financial advisor write a letter that says that you have the financial means to be able to purchase 123 Main Street and purchase it soon? If they've got all their money in CDs, they can't touch it. It's not going to do us a lot of good anyway. It used to be that cash was not even the best choice. When rates were in the 2 and 3%, had people taking out loans, why not? It's like free money. Like, why would you take hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars out of your bank account or your investments where you might be getting higher than a 5% return and put it into a house? You're not going to get that every year. No. The other side of my mouth says, during COVID, people were gaining 25, 30% year over year, but that's not sustainable. Gary Keller says 4 to 5% every year, so that's more of what's typical. High yield savings accounts right now are going to, what are they, 5.5% or something? I don't know, but you can gain 5% a year, but probably your savings account isn't normally going to have what a house has in it. So there are definitely, when you're working with more of that high net client, you'll have some that will say, yes, I'd rather take out a margin loan or take out some other financing. I have the cash, but I want to leave that cash where it is. I'm not highly familiar with what a margin loan is. I did one for the first time this year. I had some clients that bought a house on Lake Wiley, $2 million. It was cash, but they didn't actually move their cash out. It's a margin loan that's essentially an equity line from like Merrill Lynch. So they had the 2.5 million, but Merrill Lynch wants it and they want to keep using it for whatever they're using it for. So this family is borrowing on a daily rate with an interest payment. I don't know what it is, but they're making that payment back. But their other investments are making so much money, it's kind of a wash. So basically, they never moved their money out of this account, and they're using their equity, kind of their credit with that bank. And so the bank brought it to closing, but their money never left. So it was sort of like them getting a mortgage when they were cash people. So using this LP Mama is a really great way for you to kind of determine this motivation and set that appointment and know how soon it needs to be. Maybe you talk to somebody and you're like, you'll hear things that people say when you're like, uh-oh. They might say like, well, my car got repoed last month, but I'm hoping that blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, okay, we might have a credit thing. You're like, well, I don't know. Do you know what your credit rating is right now? Do you have any idea kind of where you are? And they might say, yeah, I was in the 400s. So if your credit is really low, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to get a conforming loan. So you may have to get something like a hard money loan. That's not a conversation for you to have necessarily, but you can say to them, just so you're setting their expectations, not getting them overly excited. Hey, I'm going to talk to a loan officer and immediately get a loan. You're going to say, it may be that we need to wait and do some credit repair first, but I have somebody who can definitely help you with that. I know Matt would do that. Any other loan officer is probably going to be able to help you to introduce them to someone to help rebuild that credit piece. So those things you'll learn as you get more into it to know you can kind of read if they're ready to do it now. Maybe you're setting that appointment for 30 days from now. Maybe you're setting it for 6 months. Maybe they're saying they're going to come visit in August of this year. So you're like, okay, well, since you're going to visit in August, I'm not going to send you houses today because the homes that are out there right now are going to be priced a little differently, and the strategy is going to be different for you going under contract for those than it will be in August. But here's what I suggest. Why don't we use what's currently out there now just for me to get a feel for what areas you like? When can you get on the phone with me and look at some of the ones I send you? Okay, so tomorrow works great. Well, then we're going to look at some of these together. When I get the feel for those, I'll keep my pulse on the market, and then let's touch base once a month until June. And then in June, let's talk once a week. If you're talking once a month with them and they're going to move their trip up, they're going to tell you. Less than once a month is really hard for them to remember and keep that relationship with you, and you can lose them. And I think every agent has probably lost somebody that said, I'm going to come next year, and you didn't check in that once a month, and then they ended up changing their trip. You didn't know, and they went to an open house and got an agent, and you catch up, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, gosh, we couldn't remember your name, and we couldn't find your phone number, and we ended up going to an open house and bought with that. And you're like, oh, no, it's fine. Congratulations. That's great. If you don't follow the broke agent on Instagram or any other social media, everything he says is true. 7, close to appointment tactics. All right, here, let's read this. Show the benefits. Take back close. Negative, positive close. Give them what they're looking for. I don't know what any of that means. We talked about already. Show the benefits. Like, what do you do as an agent? What makes you really know your craft? Things like the lore. When you guys hear Sandra or anybody else say lore, do you know what that means? LORE, language of real estate. So that's knowing how many homes are on the market, what the average home price is for your area of specialty. I think it's fair for all of us to say we should know Fort Mill. You should probably know South Charlotte. If there's other areas you want to branch out into, that way you can have an intelligent conversation. even if you're not licensed in North Carolina yet, just know the North Carolina stuff. You're going to get licensed in North Carolina too. I would definitely get licensed in both. The first 2 weeks I was in real estate, I'm North Carolina primary first because I lived in Ballantyne when I was licensed. And the second open house or third open house I ran, the girl was like, there's a house in Fort Mill I want to see. And she's like, I don't know if it's still on the market. Will you look for me? And I looked and it was like, thank God it was under contract. And I was like, it actually is under contract. And I was like, oh my God, I got to go take my test right now. I got to go right now. Got to take it so soon. So I rushed, studied in a day. It was fresh enough in my head. That's another thing. If you've just gotten licensed like some of you guys have, it's all the same information. North Carolina is harder. Actually, do they not make you test for that anymore? They don't, do they? If you're South, you just get an automatic one, don't you?
Yeah, but if you're
Oh, then you should probably take.
90 hours and 18 months.
Oh God, it's so.
If you test out, do you have to do the? No, I think if you take tests, you don't have to do the education. I think it's one or the other.
Really?
From what I understand, it's completely different.
It is. It's North Carolina is way harder. Honestly, it's like second hardest in the country behind Texas, I think.
I've been trying to get my North Carolina license for over a month.
It'll make you a really good agent. Maybe take a pre-licensing course. I mean, I don't know if did you take a course?
No, I did not. It's literally my background check because I used to live in New York.
Oh.
They made me pay an extra fee to get my background check in New York, and then when it came back, everything came back. It was like and they were like, okay, well, we need to get it unsealed.
Oh
Because
no.
the records after 2 years, you have no further issues or if it's any whatever misdemeanor or whatever it is. So they sealed it. They had it. And South Carolina did not need it. They were like, let's put it so far back, we don't care.
Wow.
North Carolina was like, no, we want to see it. So I had to pay an extra $250 for them to open it up, and then they just got back to me again, and they were like, well, we're going to put it under review because we want to make sure you're not like criminal. I dated the wrong person when I was 20. He did something bad. I just happened to be there, and now it's haunting me in my 40s.
Well, we fail forward, right? So we all have failed at some points in our past, and then what you learn is moving forward, and you'll tell. You said you have kids? Kids? Yeah, you tell the way you want to tell your kids about it, but just be like, you got to watch the people that you hang out with, because you want to be an eagle, you need to fly with eagles. You don't need to fly with some other people. Yeah.
I want to know his parents. I want to know why. I'm like, trust me. Because trust me.
I'm sorry, it's so frustrating to go through. You may be able to get. I mean, I don't know if you've called the real estate commission to see if there's ways that they would work with you with it. I mean,
so what they said after waiting 5 to 45 days.
5 to 45.
5 to 40.
It's creative. Okay.
A lot of days.
Well, we're going to get that done. So 45 days from now, that being the worst case, you're still in the throes of us getting into spring. So you're going to be fine. So everybody else is going to get their North Carolina license. You didn't NC first, yeah. Did you think it was harder?
I didn't know any of the details, but I'd always heard it well. I had friends that had tried and gave it up. So North Carolina was the hardest, so I said, well.
I knew a girl that failed like 7 times, and I was like, oh man, you got to really study for North Carolina. If you guys need to check your phones, go ahead. I have to send a message real quick, so feel free to. Not that I care. I mean,
By the way, that last A in that thing.
appointment. Ha! What we're talking about right now. Thank you for looking that up. You were hoping I would remember, but I won't. My brain is full. So, this is a tiny little thing. Okay. So this is the, I'm sure the home inspector is probably getting close to being done, so I need to ask this agent if I can move this. Hey. I'm ready.
So I have an open house this Saturday, and I was checking out the disclosure, and under where it says updated, it was built in 1951, so it says underneath, like where it says HVAC, roof, all those things. It does not say that they know when they were updated or when they were installed. Is there a way to find that out a different way?
Well, the answer is it depends. So first thing is I would ask the listing agent. The seller probably doesn't know. Hey, I noticed those are blank. Is that because they don't know?
It just says no all the way straight down.
Says, but they didn't put the years.
But they didn't put any years.
Yes, that's actually
That was my
100%
question.
true. I would ask the agent if they know, someone else might have asked them this already. And then if they haven't, say, excuse me, I'm going to set up an agent preview for the open house this weekend. So I'll go by and I'll check it out and see if I can figure it out on my own. So with the condenser unit that's outside, and you're a mechanical person, so you probably know more than this than I do. There's a sticker on there. If it's not totally faded, you can take a picture of it. Sometimes it has the year, but usually it doesn't. Depending on the brand, you'll have to Google the brand. Like if it's Lennox, and it'll say the month and year of manufacture are either like the first 4 or the last 4. It just depends on what the brand is. Trane is really good at putting the year on there. You also might get out there and look at it and go, oh my God, that thing is older than I am. So there's pretty telltale signs. The spot that I never really can tell is when they're between 10 years and 15, like that all looks the same to me. Because usually it's new enough that it hasn't aged wildly, but that can make a big difference in its mechanical life. You know, we run air conditioning here pretty much every month of the year. So 10 to 12 months is what I hear HVAC, 10 to 12 years, sorry, is what I hear HVAC people say. You know, this is beyond its mechanical life, but it's still running great. So, and that's what you're going to say to your clients is when you see that it's got an HVAC from 1982, I'll be like, well, I'm from 1982. Look how well I'm doing. You make a joke about it first, and then you say, this is the agent for the other side. Hang on one second. Hey, Lyra. Okay. Oh, she's the best. Awesome. That's fantastic. Oh, I'm going to call him back right now. Thank you so much. All right. Bye. You know what I've realized happens? This may not surprise you guys just from living in places, but like whether you've rented, owned, or lived with other people, when people buy a house, when your buyers buy a house, it is not unusual for them to call you and say, oh my God, my heat or my AC broke in the first year. Can you believe that? Remember on the home inspection, nothing even came up. Or remember they said they had it serviced. My theory, and I have nothing behind this besides just time and experience, I think it's because people use them differently. Like I keep my heat right now on 65. Like my mom was like dying when she's in my house. She's like, it is so cold in here. I'm like, no, you're just old. No, it's fine. Put a layer on. I don't see why it needs to run all the time, but that's just me. I go into showings, people have their heat on like 74. I'm like, good God, that's what I keep my AC on. So think about my heat, you know, my heat is gas, but if I had a heat pump, it would be even harder on it. But, you know, it's going to run all the time for somebody. Then I move in and I never run it. So then the one time it kicks on, maybe it's going to have a problem. Or AC, like I think I'm just cheap. So I keep my AC on like 76, 75 in the summertime. My neighbor's runs all the time. Their unit runs way louder than mine too because I think it's always running. Whereas mine comes on at the hottest point of the day when everybody's sweating. I'm like, yeah, change clothes, put shorts on, you'll be fine. Drink some water, kids, drink some water. So that's probably why those things are going to break. But you talking about the home inspection report with your clients is going to be really helpful to them because you're going to go, all right, this is your house and the things that are important to you are really going to depend on your perspective. But let me just give you my opinion of the homes that I've sold. And once you get to where you've been in business for a while, you can say, out of the 32 and a half, I sold 32 and a half homes last year. I really did. I'll explain that later. So out of the 32 and a half homes I sold last year, it was typical for me to see something come up on the HVAC system. So whether it's heat, cool, there's rust in the pan, the unit needs to be rebalanced, we needed to have a damper done. In the case of this house, this unit's 10 years old. It's near the end of its mechanical life, but it's running great. You can see that the home inspector used her laser to test it. The heat was running great on both sides. My advice to you is this. It may run really well for the next 10 years. It may not. You can get a home warranty if you want. I found them to reduce the total expense out of your pocket. Sometimes they just don't want to pay though. I have a great HVAC guy. For peace of mind, you want to just have him come out. It's like $75. He can take a look at it and see if there's anything major. Now, the seller doesn't have to fix those things. You know, in both states, everything is subject to negotiation, but it may just give you that peace of mind. Personally, though, I wouldn't make my decision on buying this house based on this system because every home over time is going to have some mechanical that's going to need to be replaced. Sidebar, if your client's going to look to live there for 5 years or more, it's going to be fine. The money's all going to come back. When you get those good relationships where you have a great HVAC guy that you can call and all that comes in time, there's going to be somebody who's like, yeah, you know, I would probably tell them to go ahead and just use the same unit or tell them to start saving for it. This thing's probably going to go down. You can maybe use that to negotiate where you are right now, but unfortunately, because there aren't that many homes on the market, there's lots of buyers. They're all competing with each other, and the sellers know that. So they're probably going to say, yeah, Denise, my clients are not going to repair the HVAC. As you can tell, and in the report, it's blowing out hot air. Yes, it may be nearing the end of its mechanical life, but we price it accordingly. Or so is every other house in this neighborhood in the forest. This is just typical for what it's doing. And that's, yes, it may cause your client stress, but that's why you're there. You're there to help them through analyzing whether or not it makes financial sense for them. If they're a first-time home buyer, they're FHA, and you know that we had to get them closing costs anyway to be able to get them into this home, and the house is being sold as is, and then we find out that the HVAC isn't running, then it might be a conversation where the HVAC is affecting their ability to buy this house. Guys, the unfortunate thing is the seller is not making repairs. I'm going to go back and have this conversation because they still may not want to go back on the market. It still may be worth it to the seller to fix this for you, but at this point, it's looking like the estimate we have is going to be $1,400 just to get this up and running. You're probably going to need to replace that over time. Is that something you guys think you could do? It's not your house. I mean, if they say I can do it, let them do it. You can let them do it. But you know, if it just depends on what their needs are, and you're going to know them so well that you're able to analyze that with them. We spent that whole time talking about HVAC. You missed nothing.
Can you,
Yes, I have. Go ahead.
can you talk about like the due diligence period and the fees, stuff like that in both states? Because I know it's like different in North and South.
Yes. So due diligence in North Carolina is not a termination fee. So in South Carolina, it's a termination fee. So you only pay it if you terminate. What's really stupid about that is if you are under contract in South Carolina and you have a problem with, say, your financing, you do not have to terminate and pay during the due diligence period because you probably have a contingency for financing. So what you're going to do is you're going to wait. You're going to wait till due diligence ends, and then you're going to terminate because of financing. Because if you terminate during that due diligence period, you owe that money. But if you wait, your earnest money is protected by a contingency. It doesn't make any sense to me why they would do that. North Carolina being the opposite, you pay your due diligence fee when you go under contract. So usually it's within about 24 hours. If you're not going to hand deliver it, you're going to mail it, take a picture of it, you're going to track it. That money goes right to the seller, and it never, ever comes back ever. Now, if you talk to our broker in charge, he may tell you, or she may, depending on who you talk to, they may tell you that, yeah, it can come back. The seller is liable for any misstatements. It could come back if the seller breaches. Seller breaches are very, very rare in both states, but especially North Carolina. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. So the buyer is really at the risk here. If you take a step back and you think about the other side, that's really good for sellers when you've got property to sell in North Carolina. Very few people are going to be wasting your time. So when you've got a house to sell, the buyers that are coming through your door are giving you money that basically says, I'm not walking away without recognizing that I'm losing this money. What I'm seeing succeed is about, it's not even always true. Depends on how many offers. If you're the only offer, say it's a $400,000 house. Due diligence in North Carolina is going to look more like $4,000. So that's money that they get toward their closing. So it's almost, yeah. So around that 1%. Now, South Carolina, I do 0.5%, and I get people to accept that, but our listing agent will tell you that that's too low. But again, it's a termination fee, so it doesn't really exist, and that's the argument that I make. I'm like, we're not planning on terminating. What do you care? So I have one that's under contract right now. I keep referencing the Forest because that's a real one, and we did that home inspection yesterday. And the purchase price is $901. We did $4,500 due diligence termination fee. This is South Carolina. The listing agent argued with me that I should do 1%, and I said, $9,000 is a catastrophic loss. I don't care who you are. And I said, we are the only offer, and we have a short due diligence. We wrote it for like 16 days. This is a 4,000 square foot house or 3,700 square feet. It's like, it's more than reasonable. And then what I did too, and the listing agent didn't like me, but if you know your stuff, you don't have to argue. You can just say, so I know what she bought the house for in 2019. It's a matter of public record. And I estimated where her interest rate was going to be and what her payments are. We are paying her more than double what her payment is. That's fair. I'm paying your client her mortgage and then more, and I'm paying all her utilities probably. So that's enough. Now, if you had 4 offers, yeah, probably then we go back and we say, guys, you got to toe that line of risk reward. I don't want anybody to lose anything. Y'all aren't going to want to either. People are very upset, and they may lose their interest in searching for a little while if they lose due diligence money. But it's figuring out to them, how much is this house worth to you? Where are you okay losing it? I say that term exactly. Where is this house okay to let go? And that'll be both for your purchase price and for your deposits. So in North Carolina, where due diligence is higher, earnest money is usually lower. That's usually like 0.5%. People don't really care about earnest money because North Carolina, that due diligence is, once it is gone, it is gone. It never, ever, ever comes back. You're probably not going to terminate and lose your earnest money. That would be something catastrophic, like you lose your job or something like that. And then you're going to lose both. And in South Carolina, the earnest money is going to be protected by all the contingencies. We try to write in those contingencies as much as we can. It depends on your competition. Personally, if somebody is using a loan, I do not encourage them to waive the financing contingency. You can. I mean, like, they're getting a mortgage. They can say, I'm not going to protect my earnest money by checking that box because it makes their offer more attractive. But why would you do that to them? Like, to me, I'm like, is any house really worth you losing that earnest money? If you waive that financing contingency and rates go up to 7.5 and you can't afford this house anymore, if it jumps up a point, you may not be able to. You really want to risk money for that? Well, the seller won't accept my offer otherwise. And I'm going to say, yeah, that's what they're saying. But is it worth it to you? I mean, you have to let them decide. You can't have more passion for their position than they do. Set them up for understanding where their risk is, but also going, how much is 123 Main Street really worth? Where's that line in the sand? Where am I okay with it? And it's the same way for multiple offers. How do you advise somebody on, if a house has 6 offers on it already, they love it, where do you tell them to go? You can run comps for everything that closed before and see how high it is. Again, you probably want to go back 9 months to a year because 6 months ago really wasn't comparable. It's just a different time. And then ask the agent, what's most important to your clients? Is it deposits? Is it purchase price? Most of the time you're going to say purchase price. Look at the ages of those systems. If it's not on the disclosure, go look at the mechanicals. Guys, you're going to probably need a new HVAC in the next decade. I don't know if you care about that, but that's one thing to keep in mind. And then know where they're okay stopping. All my examples are of higher price points, so don't get stuck on that too much, but just percentage-wise. So I had a buyer 2 weeks ago. The house was listed for $1 million flat. It was underpriced. We walked in the door and I go, this house is underpriced. And that makes me mad because that means they're trying to drive more interest. There's enough interest. We don't need you to drive more. We're going to make an offer like there. So this house probably had 15 offers on it by the end. So she offered $1,057,000. So $1,057,000. 1.1 was just a threshold for her that made her sick. We were standing in the kitchen and I said, this is going to go for significantly above. It's just way underpriced. And she's like, I know. Where do you think it's going to go? I said, gut says 1.1. She goes, 1.1 for this? This house was built in 2000. I said, okay, well, you told me your answer. So we know it's not 1.1. And I said, you're going to have to go at least 1% over. So she goes, so $1,050,000. I said, well, or 0.5% over. That's what I said. And I was like, don't go 50,000 over because someone else is thinking like we are. 1.1 is kind of an MLS increment for people that are looking above $1 million. Like no one's going to go $1,050,000. That's my cutoff. They're going to go, I want to stop at 1.1. I want to stop at 1.2. Just like people do $25,000 increments for different price points. So you might have a buyer that says, I'm stopping at 350. I'm stopping at 325. Typically, they're not going to say 340. Their lender might say that, but they're not going to go, oh, 337. Like they're going to say 350, 325. I want to be in there. So if you're going to go within that MLS increment of making your offer, make sure you do an unusual number. I call it a customized number. So for my client, her name is Brittany to make it easier. So for Brittany, I said, don't go 50. Someone else is going to think like us. That's kind of a whole number. So why don't we do like 52 or 56? Or if you have a magic number, and she chose 57 because it was meaningful for her and her daughter. So we went with the 57. We did $25,000 due diligence. But when you think about it, if we're talking about many, many offers, she's essentially saying, I'm not going to terminate on this house unless there is a repair that is greater than $25,000. And she's very confident in her ability to purchase. I don't know if she could have bought it in cash, but I know that she was not financing a lot. So she was doing bigger deposits. So in that case, she's like, yeah, I love this house. I don't want to lose it. That's my $25,000. I'm bringing it to closing anyway. But that's a risk. That's a huge risk. Someone probably did more. But I was like, I don't want you to lose more than 25, do you? I had a family that did $75,000 due diligence last year. That was their number. I was like, I don't know about that, man. You sure? What if grandma's sick and you got to go take care of her? They said, there is nothing that is going to cause us to terminate on this house. Okay. And they said, we want to show the seller how serious we are. There's other offers. We really want to get it. They got it. They closed. They're happy. They love their house. They never thought about it again. But if that money was gone, my God, I wish there was a statute in either state for the max that you could lose as a buyer. I think that would be a lot more fair, especially because we do have a home shortage. But there's nothing like that at this point now. So you just have to inform your clients in the best way you can. Make sure they understand that due diligence in North Carolina is a prepaid toward your closing. In South Carolina, it is a termination fee that you only pay when you terminate. So the money doesn't exist if you don't terminate during due diligence. And if you're protected by one of the contingencies throughout the contract in South Carolina, then you don't have to worry about paying that due diligence. You're just going to terminate after. Hey, sorry. As long as you can negotiate it to be. So it depends on the house. So if they're buying a 1926 house on 8 acres, try to get a long due diligence. 6 weeks would be great, but it depends on how long you've got to work with. If they've got to be out of there in February, then it's all negotiable. Typically what succeeds when there's multiple offers, or at least it's popular, it's getting a lot of showings, is going to be like 10 to 14 days. It's hard to get a home inspector. It's hard to get through the loan process. In South Carolina, it's not as important to do your loan process and due diligence, but North Carolina, guess what? There's no contingency for anything. So there's no financing contingency. You've got to get through all your financing stuff and due diligence. No, there's no contingency for anything. Everything's negotiable. That's great when you're a seller, because that means nobody is going to just kick your tires and go under contract for no reason. When you're a buyer, man, it's tough. You got a lot to risk. You got to make sure that you are fully underwritten before you go under contract. If somebody has not done all their paperwork with their loan officer, don't even write that offer, because they could be in big trouble.
I saw some land right before I got my license, after that agent here. And, the diligence on it was up to 3 days before closing.
Wow. Yeah, that's good. That's a pretty good way to do it. But land, it was land with no property or no housing on it?
Yeah, it did have a residential house. I'm just saying, it had a barn.
Dwelling, that was the word I was looking for, dwelling, no dwelling on it. Yeah, you need more with land depending on what you're going to do with it. So if you're going to build on it one day, land is a little bit different than selling real property dwellings, but you got to do soil testing to make sure if you're going to add a septic system at any point, make sure it is residential usage, see what the deed restrictions are. Usually the cloud on title is a lot stronger of a risk with land because it's probably been sold less often, can be held in people's families for years and years and years. So it's more likely that Aunt Sally is going to come back and be like, actually, this was acquired with false pretenses, and this is actually my land. What's interesting too about our area is we have the Catawba River, and there was Catawba Native American land, and still is around here. If you ever do a closing at Wilson and Beam, ask them to tell you about the Catawba lands and how they were acquired. Essentially, I guess it was illegally, but it was through the United States. Like the United States took this land back. Well, there is a claim on title for some people that had land that was Catawba Indian Reservation land that then was purchased and sold multiple times. That's why you should always get title insurance, because that happened in the 1960s or 70s, and it was from Native American land, but the United States did it, and they did it wrong. And now here we are 50 years later, and people are like, oh, I live in the house that's on that land. You might have a cloud on your title because it's something you didn't do, people before you didn't do, people before them didn't do, the freaking government did it, and it's still there. So title insurance is so important, and you're going to hear buyers that say, I'm not going to get title insurance for myself, I'll just get the lender title insurance. No, the lender's only protecting the amount of your loan. They're not protecting you, they don't care about you, we're just peons to them, they just want to take our money. So that is absolutely worth it for your clients. If they say, do you have an opinion on that? I do have an opinion. Do you guys know what tie downs are? We talked about making that assumptive close. To be honest, I don't really. It's a sales strategy. I am not a salesperson, really. I'm just more of, I know what's going to work, what's going to get people to answer your phone calls and want to talk to you. I mean, your job here is not to sell homes. Your job is to build relationships with people and help them engineer a solution to whatever their problem is. Whether they need more space, they want less space, they want land they can hunt on, they want to build a dream house one day, they want to move to the beach, whatever that is. You're that engineer. You're going to help them see the quality of their home. You're going to see the total value. And you're also going to give them your professional opinion all the time, because that's what you're there for. That's what you get paid for. I don't know if you guys have thought a lot about, I know we talked about it last week, but just how the commission conversation has changed. I was actually taught when I got into the business to say that I am free to you. Well, obviously you would never say that to anybody now. Because if the listing agent is not sharing their commission with you, you're going to look to your buyer to do that. The way that I word my buyer consultations now is I say, I seek to be compensated by the seller's agent. If at the time that we're looking at a house that is not the case, we can talk about it then individually. And that's what I say. I don't expect my clients to pay me Obviously, I couldn't sustain a business and pay my mortgage and feed my kids if I did everything for free. But there may be opportunities in the future where we are talking about as real estate agents. There may be things that we do for reduced fees. We may have menus for services. Until we see what happens with these lawsuits a little bit more, I think it's going to be hard to know. But just have a way of putting that into your own words where when you're working with buyers, you are addressing commission. We're no longer not able to talk about it just because you don't want to be 6 weeks in and someone goes, by the way, I saw this thing on the news and I just want to let you know I'm not paying you. You're going to show them so much value that they would be like, I would never buy a house without you. What do you mean? The clients I talked about that had the mortgage loan for the multi-million-dollar house, I worked with them before. They bought a house in Baxter and they sold it with Shannon. And they saw a for sale by owner house and they called me and they said, so he wasn't going to pay a buyer's agent. And so your heart like goes all the way down into your stomach. You're just like, oh no. Okay. And I said, oh really? That's so interesting. But he was using an agent previously when he bought his house, because I looked at the history and they were like, yeah, but we've decided, Justin and I talked and we're going to pay you. We can pay you $30,000. And I thought I was going to, I almost cried. I was so glad I was over the phone because I'm like, oh my God, I've never valued myself that high. Well, they were buying a $2 million house. Really, I mean, that's more than fair, right? But I can't believe that they would pay me that. Someone will do that for you guys. It may be really soon in your career. It may take a little while. I mean, I'm 7 years in now, so that's the first time that someone ever said, I would pay you for that. When you list their house, they're going to see the value because you're talking about marketing and you're talking about using a drone and you're talking about you might buy Google AdWords. On the buyer side, it's a little bit harder because we are looking at the internet and they're looking at the internet. 100% of homes are found on the internet. So they don't necessarily need the agent to find the house, but that's not where your role is here. Your role is to be able to establish that value, to make sure that the elements, the 3 L's, the things they can't change, they've probably not heard that before. So you can be like, those 3 things are the pieces that I know that are malleable to us. Let's figure out how, given your budget and where we want your location to be, how we can make the best puzzle piece fit for you. This house needs things. Okay, that's fine. It looks like it needs 2% worth, 2% of the home's value it needs in cosmetics. But I looked at the neighborhood comps and other homes are selling at 5% where they were 2 years ago. So if we think about, you need to put $8,000 into this $400,000 house to be able to get it to where you want. If you guys are going to be here for 3 years, everything I'm saying in comp says you're going to make that money back. Is that worth it to you? Or if they're renting, it's really easy. You're renting right now, that's 100% interest. So even if you're just putting your money in and gaining a little bit, even if you break even, that's better than paying somebody else's mortgage. You put your money in the bank and it was safe. You put your money in a house and it was safe. It's the same thing. If it was going to sit in the bank, at least you're not wasting it on somebody else's. And most likely you're going to make money on whatever you own in this metro region because the way that Charlotte is growing. As interest rates go down, prices are going to go up, but equity goes up too. So remind people too, like, hey, this house, we're going to marry this house. We're going to date the rate. So the rate is 6.99 today. Okay. For, they may be at 7.1. It could be worse for them. But if you close in February, your first mortgage payment's due when? Does everybody know if you close in February? When's your first payment due? April. So your first mortgage payment is made in arrears. So it's made for the month back. So you close in February. I'm just hard to imagine it. So February 14th, Valentine's Day, you close. So March, no payment. April 1st is your payment. And that's going to cover March. Because February, you close on the 14th, you get to move in that night. I mean, unless we've arranged for there to be a seller possession after. But you have brought to closing on February 14th the interest rate broken down into a daily rate from the 14th through the end of the month. So this year, February has 29 days in that month. So from February 14th to the 29th, you paid interest to live in that house because your first payments are all interest. You don't pay any principal. So you're paying the bank for your right to live there. It's their house. You don't own that house. They own it. They're letting you live there. Isn't that nice of them? So when you pay April, it covers March. So if somebody closes in February, you can say, you're not even going to have a payment due until April. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know where rates are going to be in April, but they're telling us right now rates are going to do a W. So they're going up and down throughout the year because they don't want to flood the market with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of equity that people have. So Rates are high today when you close. They're probably going to go down lower in the spring. You can refinance then. There's not a minimum. Most lenders will give you free refinance, at least one. Ask your lender. Make sure they do it. My favorite lender is Mike Pennington with Carolina Mortgage Firm, and he has free refis for life. It's awesome. For life, forever, because it cost him $1,000. He's like, is it worth $1,000 for me to refinance you 3 or 4 times till you die? Yes. Or till I die. That's his joke. Till you die or I die. One of us is getting him. So let's pretend that they have through December. They don't refinance until December. You can get your loan officer to give you an estimate of what the difference is at 6.5% interest rate, 6% interest rate, 6.9. All right, it looks like you're paying an extra $90 a month through December. Is it worth it to you to live in this house and pay that extra $90 a month? Maybe you go out to eat one less time. But think about where pricing is going to be if we have never gone down in pricing. If you're talking about now, you're going to wait. You want to wait and buy maybe next year. Rates are going to be low, so what does that mean? More buyers. Prices are going to be even higher. It may not even make that much of a difference. You may pay that difference in purchase price. Or, okay, if the purchase price is about the same and your interest rate's a little bit lower, you're only paying extra money for this period of time. The interest rate is all temporary. As long as your buyer can afford the payment, that's the important part. And we have to stay more educated than ever on where the market is right now, because your buyer can lose their ability to buy with just some of these swings, because they're going up sometimes half a point overnight. You guys know on Tuesdays is when they release the rates. So you'll know on Tuesday. So the market is closed over the weekend, and by Tuesday we know what's going to happen. That's actually a great question. This is a weird thing to say. There really isn't a way to know exactly what someone's particular rate's going to be. My favorite loan officer does this, but any loan officer you know that you like, or I can introduce you to Mike too, will put you on his weekly email, or his or hers, and it's going to tell you what's happening in the market. It'll get really granular if you want. I don't try to understand it because I also don't want to talk too much about something that we're not licensed to talk in. So I like learning about it, but I also don't want to be like, the BIPs went up today because that's not my job. That's their job. But that way you can keep your pulse on where it's going to be, and you can say a range. You know, if you look at the email and it says the prime rate today is like 6.9, that is if you have wonderful credit and you might be buying some points. Like a lot of the quotes now have to do with you buying, maybe you're buying 1/8 of a point or something. So that's just closing costs that are going to be brought. When we say closing costs, everybody knows what that means. You know what closing costs include? You remember that from school? So it's going to be that daily rate that we talked about of your interest rate coming in, your taxes, your insurance, paying the attorney. If they happen to be paying you instead of the other side paying you, that could be a closing cost. But we're seeing closing costs now between 2 and 3%, depending on their loan product. That trusting loan officer you have is going to be able to estimate that for your client when they go under contract of what their loan expenses are going to be. But if you're thinking about a $400,000 house, they can expect to bring at least $8,000. That's plus their down payment. Now, that's minus what they've already done with deposits. So if they've already brought in their earnest money or due diligence, if it's North Carolina too, then that's going to help. That's money that's already there. So you get credit for that at closing. It's a debit to the seller and it's a credit to your client. They've already done it because they paid it. So North Carolina, you can say, all right, $400,000 house, we've already made $6,000 worth of deposits. That's a good bit of their closing costs. It's a good bit of what they're paying the attorney and paying an interest. So they'll bring a little bit more of that, and they're going to bring their down payment. So you'll be able to do those estimates in your head because people know how much money they have. So if they're like, I have $10,000, I'd like to buy a $500,000 house, please. You may not have the deposits in place right now, but that's okay. Let's talk about how we can get you to that point. Let me introduce you to my favorite loan officer so we can figure out things that you need to do, the most effective way for you to save. Or maybe they're living in a really expensive apartment and they need to get out of there. I mean, there's definitely ways to speed up that process if you ask the right questions. God, I have so much left. I think we've already talked about all of this though. Buyer guide. I don't use a buyer guide right now. I was actually talking about how I think it may be a helpful thing to have a takeaway that you give to somebody because a lot of people are questioning what our value is. So, I mean, right now what I do is talk about agency and talk about signing the agency agreement. South Carolina, remember, you're supposed to sign that before you open a door. Does Denise do that every time? Sometimes you may need to go out and just get to know each other. You can say, okay, so this document here is the buyer agency agreement. This activates my service to you. I always use that word. Activate sounds like a superhero. This allows me to be able to protect your interest in a transaction. Depending on the houses that we see, I may have an agency agreement that is called a dual or designated agency, especially because I'm on a team. So what you need to know about that buyer is my team has a large service area. We have a lot of listings. There may be a listing that's going to be a match for you. So I'm going to talk to you about how dual agency means that my loyalty may be divided. But what's amazing is when I'm on a team, I don't represent that seller. So let me talk about that a little more specifically. So 123 Main Street, Shannon, my partner, represents the seller. That may be a great house for you. Shannon and I work in the same office, and we were trained by the same supervising agents. But Shannon knows about her clients, and I know about you, and we don't talk about you guys in the office. But I tell you that because there are some agents that practice dual agency on both sides. Sidebar, if y'all want to do dual agency, you totally can. There's nothing wrong with it. It does obviously eliminate some of the service that you would provide because you have divided loyalty. But you tell your clients this: when I show you a house, if it is going to be one where dual agency applies, we'll talk about that before we walk in the door, because there may be some ways that we need to be a little more creative, and we may not want to talk about certain things in the house because I know that Shannon's clients have cameras or whatever that looks like. Part of my agency agreement to you says that once we start looking at homes, I have certain duties to you. I'm your fiduciary. I'm essentially the CFO of our process here. So you are the president. You own this company of buying a house. But I'm going to tell you my opinion on how we should best invest and how we should spend or save your money. So trust me, I'm here with you. We are probably going to talk throughout this 4 to 6 week process, depending on how long the transaction is, and that'll depend on the house. But we're going to probably be talking every day. You get me as many hours a week as you want me. Most of the time, we're going to be talking about an hour a day. Certain things that will take a little bit more involvement are going to be going through the inspection and negotiations process, getting you initially pre-approved. Those things are all part of what my service is as your agent. Typically, I am compensated by the listing agent. The seller has commissions that they pay, whatever they've agreed on with the listing agent. The listing agent often agrees to share that with the buyer's agent. If that's not going to be the case on a home that we see, say we find it outside of MLS or they disclose that they're not paying a buyer's agent, we'll talk about that at the time. Most of the time, though, we're going to be looking at houses that are on MLS, and they're with cooperating brokers that I work with every day. Most of the brokers that I closed houses with last year out of the 32 I sold were from other agencies. So dual agency was not as common. Not that I don't love working with other agents at Keller Williams Connected, but I sell houses all over the metro. So I work with lots of different brokerages and agencies. And I'll tell you, as an agent that's out there in front of a lot of other agents and working with other buyers, is our goal here is to get you into homes and get you comfortable. But the more efficient we can be in this process, the more money we'll save you. As you've noticed, the market has changed as we've gone through the last couple of years post-COVID. Prices really aren't coming down. They're staying steady or going up, and rates are going like this. So we're going to do our best right now in this buyer consult to make sure the things that I learn about you are going to help us be as strategic as possible. Do you have any questions so far? Anything we talked about that makes you feel hesitant about signing the agency agreement today? Well, I really want to talk to the other people in my life. That's no problem. So I know you mentioned that your girlfriend's going to be available on Sunday. Is that still a good time? Maybe we can all grab coffee. Have you ever been to Night Swim off South Boulevard? They probably are going to say no. Now, what you can say is, if you'd rather do this electronically, what I'll do is email it to you. I do most of my stuff electronically. Now, the risk that you're taking is you're meeting with them, they're not paper signing it, and they're not clicking through, and they may walk away from you and disappear. Probably won't. I can't think of a time that that's really happened when I've gotten to that point. Now, I've had people drop out because of life circumstances. I've had people say, this market's not for me. I've had people under agency that disappear for a long time, and then you come back and you're like, oh my God, are you okay? What's going on? I had a family from Florida that I don't know what happened to them. I reached out to their referral agent, and hopefully they're all right. But 95% of the time, you're going to have such a meaningful conversation leading up to that appointment, during and after, that they're not going to run away from you. I also think if you know enough information and you see a matching home, it might be nice to get them out to a house the day you do your consult, if you can. If you haven't had a chance to talk about that beforehand, like if you're meeting them either here, you're meeting them out in the community, people will say meet in the office. I think people like to meet out and have a cup of coffee or something, but it's really whatever you're comfortable with. You can tell them that, hey, there's a house at 456 Maple Street that I thought actually might be a good match for you. I know we're only just getting started, but do you want to go check it out just so you can get the rhythm for what it's like to work with me as we go through houses, and I'll show you some of the things that I've noticed about this house and why it might work. And they might go, oh shoot, you know what? you'd originally said an hour and a half, and I've only got another 15 minutes. I got to go to work. But a lot of times they're going to say, yeah, sure, let's go see a house, because then they're going to get in there with you. You can laugh a little. You can do your, like, whatever the things are, the quirks of your personality. I make the same joke every time I pull down an attic for the first time I've been with a client. Like when I go to do the pull down, if they have one, I go, well, how did she die? And then they laugh. Ah. I'm like, yeah, if I don't come down in 5 minutes, just wait longer. Like I'll just do, because it makes people laugh. It's disarming, but that's my thing. You don't have to be a comedian or want to be a comedian to be a real estate agent. You just find the way that what makes you you, what makes you your most authentic self. Like bringing the skill set that you had from previous positions, maybe what you know about that neighborhood. Doing as much homework as you can before you even open that door will make you look really good too. If you're from the area that you're showing in, that is such a wonderful ad. It won't be that way every time. And I'm not saying only show in areas that you know really well, but man, it's cool if you're like, oh, well, did you see they're building that new Publix over there? Like that's the stuff that they may not think about. And they're like, wow, you really know what you're talking about. And it doesn't always have to be about the house. Maybe it's about the community, the walkability, talking about what they've heard on the news, talking about, oh, I called my loan officer yesterday. You remember the one I was going to introduce you to? Well, he mentioned right now they're doing free refis for life. Just keep bringing in all of that value because they're going to want to talk to you then. So my packet doesn't really have all of this. There is nothing wrong with that, and I think it'd be a really good thing. A lot of this stuff we already talked about too. Reasons to buy a home, I mean, that's in their motivation. You already know their reasons. Sample contract, that is a really good thing to go over with somebody. I don't usually go through it while we're sitting at the table, but what I say is, I'm going to send you a copy of the South Carolina 310 purchase contract, or I'm going to send you a copy of the North Carolina 2T. It is really exciting reading. You're going to love it. But I'm going to attach it as a PDF and send it to you in your email. Just flip through it. And I say that because when we find the right house, it's going to move pretty fast. Depending on whether or not they have a deadline for offers, or we're excited, or the next day you know you're going to be out of town, we're probably going to need to work on that within the next couple of hours after we've seen the home. And sidebar, sometimes you're doing it like, oh my God, somebody needs to write this up for me right away. There's a deadline in 2 hours. But the more familiar they are, the fewer of those questions they have. People do actually read it. You might have people that go, I'm a little bit confused. Is it true? And it says blah, blah, blah in here. And then you're going to walk them through it. South Carolina is a lot more buyer friendly. So you have a lot more positive reviews of the agency agreement and of the contract when you're doing South Carolina. North Carolina, again, because it's a caveat emptor, buyer beware state, it's a little bit more like, ooh, they're going to read it and go, wait a minute, so I really don't have any rights as a buyer and everything's subject to negotiation? You're like, yeah, but that's what you got me. Don't worry about it. There's plenty of people buy and sell homes in North Carolina every day. And the one positive thing is there are fewer terminations in North and South because they don't have the contingency. So again, us talking about this today and becoming more familiar with your needs and wants means I'm not going to show you a house that you're not concerned buying anyway. So we are serious, right? Yeah, we're serious. Okay, good. This is the guide that I don't use, but people do. I'm sure all this exists. Liability letter. Talking about love letters. Does that mean anything to you guys when I say that, what a love letter is? We used to do them all the time when we first were in multiple offers, coming out of when the market was soft. And that was right when I was getting in business in 2017. People would write a letter that's like, I have X number of pets. I have X number of children. I am this religion. I am this tall. My hair color is this. Yeah, you can't do any of that stuff. That is all protected class. Because I used to be in HR, that stuff really freaks me out. And I never liked doing it. I always thought it was inappropriate. And it is. It always has been. But our MLS actually, Canopy says it's not okay. Most agents will not accept them and forward them on. Now, do you want to know a workaround? Everybody say yes. Here's the workaround. You can call the listing agent and tell them about your client. You also can customize that offer price. So remember I told you about Brittany who did $1,057,000? What I said is, I know the 57 may seem a little unusual and the appraiser is going to hate me. But the reason I did 57 is that's significant to Brittany and her daughter. She's a single mom, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't send a letter that says, please pick me because of this. I explained the number. So I am still slightly manipulating a little bit. But the seller cannot choose based on who somebody is. And the risk with these was people were saying, they usually meant, well, I have a golden retriever and you guys have a golden retriever. Pick us. But really what matters is the bottom line. Did you call the agent before you showed the house when you knew that there were many offers on it or there were going to be? You know your client loves it. Did you call the agent and say, what's most important? That's really what you do. The love letter it was kind of that added bonus of like, hey, look at us. But really everything that's going to be on that offer document is really what's going to make you shine. Instead of a love letter too, I talked about the customizing of the offer price, but I send an email that has all the highlights in it because the agent is probably pretty busy. They may be looking at other offers besides yours. And I'll have purchase price, deposits, time to close, other property to sell. If they don't have another house to sell, that's definitely a good thing because then they don't have to worry about things falling apart because of that sales contingency. And then I put a paragraph in there that talks about what a swell gal I am and how much they're going to love me. And I say that because I'm like, we haven't worked together before, and sometimes you have worked with the agent, but it's always my goal to make it a win-win, just like what we say here at KW, because there will be agents that remember and like you. There will be agents that you work with that you remember and you don't like. And you're like, oh God, I never want to work with them again. But you might have to. So I try to approach everything with kindness. That when I argued with that agent when she wanted more due diligence from my clients, the termination fee, and I said, that's going to pay your client's mortgage twice over. That's all I had to do. I didn't have to raise my voice. I didn't have to be like, oh, well, that's really interesting that you're saying that. I mean, agents will talk to you that way, but there's no reason to. We're all friends. The goal is to get their client's asset sold, your buyers to buy that asset, and for everybody to make more money. Even the buyer is going to make more money. So if you can approach it that way, you will have a lot more success when it comes to that. So don't do love letters. Our broker in charge will kill you. How will your behaviors be different moving forward from what we talked about today? Do not call list. You can still call people from the do not call list. That's a scary thing to say, right? Saying that because if you're cold calling somebody, there's probably a reason that you got their phone number. So just make sure you explain when you're calling. If you're just like, hey, I'm calling everybody in this neighborhood because I want to introduce myself. My name's Denise Hauser and I'm a real estate agent. They're going to be like, I'm on the do not call. Please take me off your list. But if you call and you say something disarming, like, this is kind of an unusual call, but my friend Shelly said that you were looking to buy a house, or, hey, I wanted to let you know I'm running an open house next door, or I'm running an open house at the end of the street on Saturday. If parking is a problem, let me know. My name's Denise. I'm going to be running it. Feel free to stop by too, by the way. If you want to just come down, say hello, keep me company while I'm there, because then you're calling them for a reason. The do not call is your car's warranty is expired. So I pay attention if it's there. That way, if they say do not call, that I said take you off my list, then I'm like, well, wait a minute, but I was calling to make sure that you knew. But it's really not going to come up most of the time as long as you're not just doing the blind calls. That's more for people that are doing like an auto dialer when you're in something like Vulcan. And usually if you're going to go into, that's a system that pulls people's phone numbers from tax records. If you're doing that, you probably have a strategy and you're approaching it in a certain way. Does anybody have any questions, specific questions? I know we talked about a lot of information. Has anybody done a buyer consult before? You ever done one?
So I have a buyer that is working to get their credit better with Matt. And how do you go about like the next few months, like making sure you're still? I have the buyer agency signed.
Nice
So,
job.
I'm with them for 6 months. So
That's awesome.
It's gonna take a little while.
Right.
How do you go about that?
So how'd you meet him, that person?
Open house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Congratulations. How did you have the conversation about getting the buyer agency signed?
It felt so like raw. It was too easy. Like I just sent it like their text, or I've just been texting them. They're like, okay, sounds good. Like I explained everything. I was like, I said multiple times, like, call me if you have any questions.
Yeah.
They just filled it all out. It was good.
That's awesome.
And then set them up with Matt.
That's great. Well, obviously you added enough value just with your conversation, which is really cool. So what I usually do when I have kind of that longer term client is bring my little market update, and I joke, like, talk to me like I'm in kindergarten, because some people will tell me things and I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. But I try to give the kindergarten version of what the market is doing today. So, but it doesn't have to be every day. So you can send them a text. I don't know if you feel comfortable, like every other week. I mean, like, I think every week might be a lot right now just because they're not really looking. But you can be like, hey, Sam, just wanted to touch base and let you know what the market was doing over the last 2 weeks. So what we saw is the rates were fluctuating. Matt may have talked to you about this too, but we're seeing rates are probably going to end up in the mid to upper sixes when we really do start looking. They could, of course, get better, but you never know. I'm also seeing homes go in multiple offers, or I'm seeing a lot of showings happening. So if it's 6 months maybe from now, we're talking about being in the summer months, which is typically still a very busy time. So don't worry, what you're doing is right. Do you have any questions for me, any thoughts for me? Okay, cool. Then maybe every other month you try to see him or her in person. Because I think that keeping you fresh and just being like, hey, I was actually going to be in your area. Do you want to grab a cup of coffee or lunch? On me, just my treat. I know we're not ready to look at houses yet, but let's just catch up. People love to do that. They also love to eat. They love free shit. You could bring him a gift card for something and be like, hey, by the way, I'm running an open house this weekend. Feel free to come. If he doesn't come or she doesn't come, be like, I'm going to send you a gift card too. We did a gift card giveaway, but since I didn't get a chance to see you, little white lies like that are not the end. Maybe you didn't do a gift card giveaway, but they don't know. So, I mean, just a way to kind of keep that relationship going. Since they're under buyer agency, they're probably not going anywhere, but just to keep the market update. And then you're also keeping the pulse on them behaviorally as a buyer. Sometimes people just don't have credit. Other times it's because they have bad credit or bad spending habits. You know, they're more of a wants buyer versus a needs buyer. I had a buyer that bought a truck for his dad while we were under contract. So we never closed. We extended it 3 times. We were under contract for like 94 days. I actually called it because I got to where I thought, you know, you owe fair and honest dealings to both sides of the transaction, right? Like I felt like it really wasn't fair to the other side. And I did not tell the other side what he did, because you have a fiduciary liability where you're not going to share the financial dealings of your client. But I had to say, he's having some trouble with his credit right now. He's got a DTI problem that we didn't see coming. And she's like, oh my God, how could that have happened? And I'm like, it was a weird miscommunication, but it's coming up now. And so, I mean, that is a weird miscommunication. But it got to where I said to my client, we got to end this. We can't keep dragging this lady out. What really made me mad is that guy ended up buying a house with some other agent like 2 years later. I even sent him a message. I was like, Chris, rude. What are you doing? He's like, oh, my fiance is a real estate agent now. I'm like, oh, everybody knows a real estate agent. Your friends are going to tell you that they worked with other people, and it's going to just like, are you serious? My friend Katie, and when y'all meet her, you can be like, how dare you, Katie? I sent her Classica, build on your lot information, and they went and built with Classica without me. I was like, I'm sorry, I sent you that information. She's like, yeah, but Richard and I have, her new boyfriend person, whatever, he's built with Classica before. He's the smartest guy in the room. You know, he's the one that knows everything. He's done it all. She's like, well, Richard and I kind of felt like it was redundant for you to be a part of that process. I'm like, okay. So what I said to her was, well, I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm disappointed, because the role of an agent during new construction is very important to make sure that we're on the timeline, that you don't have any questions, that the builder is continuing to deliver the service that they promised you. Because remember, the person that represents Classica works for Classica. They get paid by Classica, right? They don't work for you. And I said, but just please remember next time, if you hear of anybody else who is going to build or looking to buy or sell, keep me in mind. Because I'm committed to you. I obviously have your interest at heart, but now that I'm not the agent in this transaction with you, I can't play the same role. Call me if things come up. If I can help, I will. I mean, don't offer your service for free, my goodness. But there are going to be friends and family that do that crap to you. There are going to be people that live, if you guys have family in other areas, you're going to say, yeah, keep me in mind if you know anybody who's looking, you know, to buy or sell. They're going to laugh. In Maryland? Yeah, in Maryland. I know agents. Keller Williams is amazing. We're international. I can interview and introduce you to an agent who's going to take the best care of you. Since I can't sell in that state, I can't take the best care of you from here. They're going to do the same. And what's cool about it too, Uncle John, is that they also have to answer to me, not just you. So I found that my friends and family, when they work with an agent that I know as well, they have a better service experience. And then 3 months later, someone's going to go, did you hear that Susie is buying a house? And I'm like, told them to tell me. But that's all right. It makes your skin thicker and makes you a lot more likely to ask for that business. Just ask. Are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate this year? I know a lot of people had the real estate goal in 2023, but because of interest rates, unfortunately, they weren't able to make it work. Does it make sense for you to buy this year? We have a lot of buyers that are active now that weren't buying last year. We have a lot of sellers that were waiting to see when more buyers were going to be on the market. Is that something that's your goal? The first time you say it to somebody, it's going to feel really awkward. And then the more you go on, you're going to realize, damn it, the pizza delivery guy was here and I didn't ask him. I ask my DoorDash people when I see them. People will laugh at you, but they're laughing like with you. They're like, wait, what? I'm like, are you looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate this year? Because I know you're here with me to deliver dinner, but I just had a minute. Do you? And they're like, oh my God. And usually they will remember you. This guy at Food Lion that I ask every time is always like, I'm not buying real estate. You asked me last time. I'm like, yeah, but it's going to change. You meet a lot of people on a daily basis. You remember me, right? And because you have your name tag on, which I don't do, think about the business I'd have then, you know? Okay. Any other questions, thoughts? No? You can call me and text me anytime. If I didn't answer you, it's because I'm asleep or I'm on the other line. Don't email me. I get too many emails. Just text me. Texting is better. If you're good on social media, this is one thing I really didn't touch on. I really am not. Too old, too lazy. I don't know what it is. Too disorganized. My plate is full. I don't know how people have time to do it all. However, be better than me and try to put something out on social media every other day. If every day seems unnatural, try to do every other day. And then at least one of those posts that you do during the week, make it about real estate. Because you're going to have people that notice what you're doing and they're going to think that you are the most successful agent on the planet. They're going to be like, oh my God, you're putting up really good stuff. One thing that I don't do anymore, that I should do, that all of us can do, is take videos about certain parts of the area and educate people. Like, do you guys know Mint Hill is called Mint Hill because they actually minted money there? I didn't know that till I started making these real estate videos. I went and read the placards on the side of the road. I'm like, huh, look at that. I thought it was because of like mint tea, like a hill of mint leaves. I didn't know it was because there was a mint here. That's why there's banking in Charlotte. We had a gold rush. It is the coolest thing. Pick something. Pick an area that you make a video about it. Like you'll get so much social media engagement. One of the gals that I did the call, I told you I had 2 buyer consults this morning. She wants to custom build. Somebody put my name out there, which is really nice, on Fort Mill Moms. If any of you are on Fort Mill Moms page, I barely pay attention. I don't even live in Fort Mill. Remember, I live in Pineville. That doesn't matter. I'm still a mom, and I work in Fort Mill. I talked to her this morning, and she's like, we were really looking for an agent like you that's had somebody custom build before. My last agent, she told me who it was. It's somebody we all know. She's a good agent. She's not in this office anymore, but she hasn't ever custom built. And she's like, I'd rather work with someone who has. Sweet. That works out for me. All from Facebook from last night, and I already had the consult this morning. So please be better than me and get yourself out there, because that's 100% of people find their homes on the internet. Like, I think the statistic is like 71% of people look at homes on social media. So if you're that person that's leading them there, it'll make a big difference. And you can just have a bigger reach. We can have 100 conversations a day face-to-face. Think how many you can have on Facebook or Instagram. If you know TikTok, people find agents on TikTok. I don't even really know what it is. I mean, I do, but I've never been on it. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for your attention. Hopefully, I didn't put you to sleep too much. How long have you been here?
That's right.
How long have you been here?
The whole time.
Oh, how did it go?
It was great.
I talked about you a lot.
Really?
No, I didn't. I don't need to. Everybody knows you. I spelled mortgage wrong while you were gone.
You did what?
I spelled mortgage wrong. You still trust me to teach these classes?
Well, I don't know how to spell mortgage either.
Mortgage.
You don't have to do that, lady. You don't
Well,
have to do
I'm
that.
trying to
I
be
got
helpful.
that. Now tell these people that for the next 2 hours they should stay here and make their calls and get 20 contacts.
People, for the next 2 hours, you just to stay here and make your calls and get 20 contacts.
Right. Guys, let's hit our numbers. Wouldn't it be cool if tomorrow everybody hit their numbers? Wouldn't that be amazing?
Does anybody,
I tell you what, I'll buy you
I want
a
this.
piece of gum.
Oh,
Everyone hit your numbers. How about
really
that?
hanging. If anybody wants to text me, and next Monday, if you want to meet me, I'll meet y'all in here in the room next door. We do our meeting, and I'll do calls with you. I mean, I feel like an idiot sometimes too on the phone. I'll like stumble over my words, and I'm like, oh, that was embarrassing. And then whatever. It's actually better when we're around each other. If you're alone and you're embarrassed with the other person on the line, you're like, all right, I guess I'll just go. Goodbye. I'll show myself out. But when we're together, I can look at you and be like, well, they won't be calling me again. Maybe they will. I don't know.
Maybe they will. People like, a lot of people will intentionally stutter every now and again so they don't sound like a professional salesperson. I do that all the time. Now, every call I open up is now a good time. You have just a quick minute.
Because
Oh,
I don't want to sound like a slick Willie salesperson. Like I'm wearing 2 watches and a plaid jacket. You know, I want to sound real. So
Yeah.
throw a little stutter in there right at the beginning.
that's cool. I like that
And
very
it
much.
puts the helpers high. They want to help you out. They feel more connected because you're kind of an idiot. As long as you get the business, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's true. It's very true.
You're still recording.
I don't know how to make it stop.
Make it stop.
Make it stop. So every Tuesday, I protect as much as my day as I can. I try to be in the office. When I say the office, I mean Dream Team's office. But if you